Husker fans, Sam McKewon with the Omaha World-Herald. This is the three keys to the Nebraska-Indiana game. We've had a couple weeks off from this. A few things have been going on in Nebraska football, as you might have remembered. And so we bring back the three keys now that we have 8 games left in the season. The Huskers against the Hoosiers, 6:30 p.m. On BTN. RIP my deadline. It's going to be kind of a long night. Indiana likes to throw the ball. They like to run fast tempo. Their games are long. Sometimes they run about 90, 100 plays. So you better pack a late dinner. You're gonna, and maybe if you're watching the game from home, don't drink too much in the first half, because this could be a 4.5-hour experience. Oh my God. Anyway, Nebraska has had what probably feels like a 4.5 months in just a few weeks. It's been really tough, right? So the Huskers obviously lost to Georgia Southern. They lose their head coach, Scott Frost, and they lose badly to Oklahoma, and then they lose their defensive coordinator, Chinander, and then they had a bye week. And now they have this week. And on Saturday they have Indiana. And the Hoosiers are not a great team. They're 3-1 overall, but they have 2 very close wins over Illinois and Western Kentucky that could have easily gone the other way. And then they kind of got run out of the gym by Cincinnati. I think they lost by 21 points. It wasn't even really that close. Indiana scored a few touchdowns late. It was Cincinnati kind of dominated that game. The Hoosiers don't have a great defense. They don't have a great run game, but they can throw the football around. Their quarterback, Connor Bazelak, was at Missouri last year. He averages just about more passes than any quarterback in college football. And so they are going to have throw. And they're going to use their throw game as a run game. They're going to throw sideways a lot. They're going to throw 2-yard passes. They're going to run screens. They're going to do a lot of things to challenge Nebraska's defense, and that'll be our second key. But our first key is real simple. And yes, I am kind of quoting a Taylor Swift song. So what? Shake it off. Nebraska has to find a way to take what has happened over the last month, and I go back all the way a month, maybe even a month and a week, and just put it behind them. And that goes with the loss in Ireland, and that goes with a weird game against North Dakota, that goes with the Georgia Southern loss, and that goes with the OU game, and then the bye week. They've got to shake all of that off, and they have to look at the rest of their season as a complete reset. Yes, their defense will be a little bit different. Yes, their offense may be a little bit different, but they have to be different up here. They have to try to put themselves in a mental place where they're not 1-3, but they're 0-0. Because everything that happened before that bye week is almost like a mini season that is gone. Consider it like a bad appetizer that you never want to eat again. But the main course, which is coming up, well, that could be pretty good. And Nebraska's going to have to look at it that way. They've got to shake off all of the negativity and frustration that they had from those first 4 weeks. Maybe the bye week will help them with that. I think it probably will help them with that. And they'll be going out into a crowd that I think will be happy to be there. Homecoming night game. Nebraska fans always kind of jazzed for night games. And so I think Nebraska's first. They've got to just shake all that stuff off and hit a reset button and go into that game just with a fresh mindset. We're gonna start over. We're going to have a completely different season. It's only 8 games long. We're going to try to win as many games as we can in that season and see where the chips fall. So I think that's the first key. Nebraska has to come out with a completely different mindset and leave behind what happened in that first month. Second key is, hey, we talk a lot about defense. And so obviously there was going to be some changes. Indiana is not a power running team. They're going to throw the football quite a bit. I think Nebraska will have relative success slowing down their run. Of course, they didn't have any success against Georgia Southern, but they'll have some relative success there. So I think Indiana's probably going to throw the football, and you're going to have to see Nebraska not only challenge Indiana's receivers in coverage more than they challenge Georgia Southern's receivers in coverage, but also they're going to have to tackle. And they'll have to keep things in front of them, but they're going to have to find a way to challenge those receivers, challenge Connor Bazelak as a quarterback, make him throw into tight windows, but simultaneously, when you've got a situation where they're throwing the ball, on a swing pass or a shoot route, as they call it, where they just kind of go right out, that's a quick throw, a flare, things like that, you've got to be able to make tackles. I won't be surprised if Indiana tries to isolate Nebraska's nickels in a way that tries to, hey, we're going to take this running back or this tight end, we're going to put them on, we're going to put them in wheel routes, we're going to put them on go routes and try to create tension there. That'll happen. That's where Nebraska needs to challenge Indiana's receivers. But there will be other circumstances. 1st and 10, 2nd and 7. You've got to go up and tackle those guys. And I think if Nebraska is able to do that, hey, Indiana's going to score. I mean, I don't think this is going to be a 35-0 kind of game. I think Indiana's going to put 21, 28, maybe even 31 or 35 on the board. But somewhere in there, Nebraska's got to force a couple of punts and do that through good tackling. Don't give up huge plays. I think that's going to be really important defensively. On offense, short runs, long passes. Now, hey, nobody's ever going to turn down a long run, right? Nobody's ever going to turn down a 50-yard run from Anthony Grant. But let's be clear about something. Nebraska has to pound the ball in the middle of the field against Indiana. They have to try to take some time off the clock, and they've got to push the pile. And everybody who watches football kind of knows this stuff. Like, you can watch a game and go, okay, well, they broke like 2 60-yard plays, and weren't those cool? And maybe they schemed it up the right way, or somebody made an incredible individual play like Anthony Grant. But what I'm talking about is you give the ball to the guy either out of the shotgun or out of the pistol or even from under center, and he just falls forward 4 yards, because the push on the offensive line is such that just about anybody, including me, could go out there and get at least 3, and college running backs can get 6 or 7. So we're not talking about 35-yard runs here. We're talking about establishing a physical running game in the middle of the field and then being able to play action pass off of that and hit your deep throws down the field, right? So we're talking those deep ends, those post routes, maybe even a go. You've got to find a way to commit Indiana's safeties upward so that they've got to make plays, and once you commit them upward or you go to a single high system because you're putting another guy in the box to stop the run, boom, that's when you go over the top. Whether it's Trey Palmer or it's Marcus Washington, Lontae Brown, or even Travis Vokolek, maybe Chris Hickman. They almost got him on a big play in the Oklahoma game. You got to get somebody behind a defense, but in order to get somebody behind a defense, you got to get the defense to come up. And there hasn't been many times this year where I feel like Nebraska's done that. I think Mark Whipple's pass game is really sophisticated and smart, and they've created some nice big plays with hitting plays in the seam and in the slot. But I'm talking about you run the ball to the point where that defense is up in your grill, and then you go right over them. And Nebraska hasn't done that enough this season, so I'd like to see Nebraska try to do that. I think they do those 3 things, the Huskers win this game. In fact, I'm going to be a little bold. I'm going to pick Nebraska to win it 35-31. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Like I said, RIP by deadline. It's going to be a long game. But I do think the Huskers pull it out. And if they pull this one out, maybe they pull out Rutgers. If they pull Rutgers out, maybe they pull out Purdue. If Nebraska loses this weekend, I think it's going to be a long climb, and it could be a tough season because Indiana is probably one of the weaker teams that Nebraska is going to play left, and it's at home. So we'll see what happens, but I think Nebraska does pull this one out. That's your 3 keys for the Indiana game. For Omaha World-Herald, I'm Sam McKewo'n.